Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
So welcome back. Before we introduce our speaker today, I neglected to ask, are there any people here for the first time or have been away for a long time? Did you say your name?
Silas.
Silas? Welcome. Stay after for tea and social time. And
Grisha.
Grisha?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Hi.
Jose.
Jose. Welcome, you guys. So today we have Heather Sundberg, who many of you know many times before. She's going to introduce herself today since I forgot to print out her new bio. She's better at it than I am. So.
Introductions.
Yes. It's been a long time. Well, we're happy to say our first name, and then we'll begin. My name is Jeff.
Douglas. Mark.
Jose. Matt. My name's Michael. Jeffrey.
I'm Jerry.
Mark.
My name's Michael. My name's David.
Peter.
Jim.
Jerry.
Jerry.
My name is Ray.
My name is Cass.
I'm Amos.
Clark.
Silas.
John.
My name is David. My name is Paige.
I'm Brad.
My name is Jeff.
Grisha.
Al.
My name is Joe. I'm Richard.
I'm Heather.
I'm David.
Okay. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. It's great to be back. These days I live in Nevada City, which is halfway between Sacramento and Truckee in Lake Tahoe. So before I lived in Nevada City, I lived here in the Bay Area, which is when I first connected with you guys. And then I moved, and very grateful that you still welcome me down here once a year. This is the time of year when I teach a loving kindness retreat, a week-long loving kindness retreat at Spirit Rock Meditation Center with my dear friends and colleagues Donald Rothberg and Larry Yang and Conda Mason. So that's where I'm headed after this. And when I'm not teaching at Spirit Rock or down here in the Bay Area, I've become a teacher for a sister Dharma organization called Mountain Stream Meditation. And our home base is in Nevada City. We have a community center there, so any of you that ever head up that way or head up towards Truckee, check the website, Mountain Stream Meditation. Please come visit. We actually own this center. It's an all-donation-based center, and it's been open for exactly a year this week. So we've been in very celebratory mode. There's a lot of work and a lot of heart gone into this. So I teach all over the country, and sometimes I'm in Nevada City and sometimes I'm here. Good enough? Okay, so I was thinking about what I want to reflect on this time, and the reflection I want to offer is on joy and calm, or sometimes I label this teaching relax and enjoy. You know? And the interesting part about there are actually 2 factors of awakening. They're 2 of the 7 factors of enlightenment as taught by the Buddha. But it's always interesting to me to teach this topic, and I have been a lot in the last year for a couple of different reasons. And today it's feeling interesting because of the usual historical reason, but also because of something that's going on in my life right now. So I'll give you the historical reason first, which is when I came to meditation practice, I was in my late teens. I was in chronic pain from a car accident. My family life was, ravaged by alcoholism and mental illness in my family. It was extremely complex and very painful. And I was actually newly sober myself. I'm sober 23 years now, so fast forward. Things were difficult. And I certainly was hopeful that maybe there were more tools to deal with the difficulties of being a human being living a life. But I certainly figured that joy and relaxation were pretty high bars, and maybe someday. So you fast forward 23 years, and yeah, maybe someday. Doesn't mean my life doesn't have its challenges, but definitely more joyful, more easeful, more relaxed. And in fact, it always feels important to frame teachings on joy and relaxation in just the realities that our lives are stressful, that we do go through cycles of illness and health, and the body's feeling good and not so good, and our families come together and fall apart, as do different parts of our communities. And it's not easy. It's not easy. And we can shift the center of gravity back and forth from the difficulty to it's not cheating, to also notice, oh, feeling really happy right now. Oh, feeling really connected right now. Oh, nervous system's actually calming down even though. And so that we can hold both. It's not cheating to hold both. And that's one of the biggest learnings I've had actually through these 20 plus years of practice. That it's inclusive, that I don't have to leave any part out. It's interesting, I was doing some teaching this week at our center in Nevada City, Mountain Stream Meditation Center, and we were doing rituals for the new year. And in one of the rituals, we were setting intentions for what we might be cultivating, qualities in the new year. And as I reflected on it, I was leading the ritual, but as we had a moment of reflection and we were doing some writing, I discovered myself writing down that really my intention for practice this year is to learn from that which is being left out and to awaken through including that which has been left out. And it's already been so rich because the little places that are left out in our psyches, in our relationships, in our politics, yeah, there's a lot being included, there's a lot being left out, always. Very interesting. Here's why it's particularly poignant for me to be sharing these reflections today. There's a community member of Mountain Stream that's been around since the beginning of the organization. The organization is 25 years old. And this person was on the board for many years. And long before I ever knew that I'd live in Nevada City or that I'd be a teacher for this community, this man has been my friend. He was one of my kind of very first important Dharma friends. The very first 6-week retreat that I sat at Spirit Rock Meditation Center, he was there, and for 6 weeks, without talking to each other, well, sometimes we'd whisper, "You doing okay?" But mostly without talking to each other, we washed dishes. We washed dishes for the whole community after lunch every day. And when that retreat was over, even though if you look at the two of us, you wouldn't think it was a natural match for a friendship, just according to conditions, we became really deep friends. He's on his way out. And the illness came quite quickly. He'd actually had another bout with cancer years ago, full remission. This was a new cancer just in the last couple months. And I was sitting with him on Thursday, and I know a lot of you know how this goes. It's like the breathing was starting to do that end-of-life breath. His kidneys had just shut down that day. He's still here. I haven't gotten the text yet. I came down here yesterday, and his partner promised that they would text. He's still here, and it's like, it's very much in my heart. And I know that in this community, and in every community, these pieces about illness and about losing those which we love has to be included in this practice. And I would dare say that part of our, and I don't say this lightly, I say this as a woman who has grieved deeply many people and a lot of things. But for me, part of that grieving, both before and after, has to be a reawakening of the spark of gratitude and aliveness and joy. So I'm thinking of John today very much, and I feel that sadness. It's a deep sadness. And I want to talk about joy and relaxation and calm. So this is from James Barra's book, Awakening Joy. And it's about his friend, Don Flaxman. And when Don found out that he had incurable cancer, he went into actually a cycle of really, you could say, spiritual fruit, of everything that was, that had awakened in his heart coming to the foreground. He said, I'm now in the richest period of my life. Now that I have less time, I'm more open than I've ever been. I'm amazed at how much joy is available just by smelling a pretty flower, seeing a hummingbird, or hearing a friend's voice. I do not waste my time complaining. Expressing love and gratitude is the most important thing I can do right now. And I read that, I feel actually the tears behind my eyes, because when I think of my friend, it's like, yeah, that's it. The way that I can honor his life and his path, his dharma, is to experience that love and that gratitude right now. Because he shared that with me when I was very young and it wasn't so available to me. It's a gift that he gave me. This is from the teacher Shantideva, 8th century Indian sage. He says, if there's a remedy when trouble strikes, what reason is there for despondency? And if there is no help for it, what use is there in being sad? It's quite bold. If there's a remedy when trouble strikes, what use is there for despondency? It's saying, okay, trouble will strike. It's part of being a human being living life. Maybe it's just basic irritation or unsatisfactoriness. Maybe it's the big news. It's the phone call we didn't want to get. If there's a remedy, we don't have to fall into an unbearable, unshakable, endless despair. It doesn't mean we don't despair. It means that we don't have to live from it longer than its life cycle. When we feed it with struggle, it keeps going. If we see it and we allow it and we let it be, it passes through. And then what use is there in being sad? Because I made it. I get to be alive today. Or at least right now. May I get to be alive for the whole day. May you get to be alive for the whole day. We don't know. We actually don't know. So in the tradition, this joy, or actually sometimes talked about as rapturous joy, is said to arise when 5 hindrances are absent. So this is a classic teaching, these 5 so-called hindrances to our practice, to our waking up. I definitely call them so-called hindrances, because what I've seen, maybe you've seen this too, is when we see a hindrance as a hindrance, well, I'll put it in the words of my teacher, Jetsama Tenzin Palmo. She says, when something happens and we see something that happens as an obstacle, then it's an obstacle. If we take that very same thing and we see it as an opportunity, then it's an opportunity. So we can take grasping, aversion, sleepiness, restlessness, and doubt and say, these are big problems. When I have these, I can't meditate, I can't be fully awake or alive, I wish it was different, I hate this. And then it's a hindrance. We could take those same things, desire, fear, sloth, torpor, restlessness, doubt, worry. And we could say, an opportunity to see my humanness, an opportunity to see where I'm caught. That very same thing is a doorway to being more awake and more free in the midst of. So those are the 5 hindrances. Desire, the kind of aversion conglomerate, which can be aversion, fear, anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness, doubt, overexcitement of the mind, and then doubt. So a few other kind of supports rather than just saying, okay, what if I get happy? What if we try to get happy, we can't get happy, then what? Fortunately, there's more tools than that. With desire or grasping, one of the great antidotes, well, if we just think about it, it's like grasping looks like that with the hand. If we actually hold our hand this long, and if you're more of a kind of somatic type, you don't kind of take these teachings in so much by listening, but actually by feeling, you might just try this. It's just, if you hold your hand really tight, and you hold it this way the whole time I'm talking until we finish this piece, you start to feel, this is uncomfortable. This kind of hurts. Wow, it's feeling kind of habitual. You can't get out of this. And that's so easy. You just let go and you realize, that was tight. There's no space. There's no openness for something else to happen. We don't have to be stuck. So natural antidote to kind of wanting is letting go. If letting go feels too highly charged, how about letting be? A little bit different use of language. Then we've got the whole aversion, fear, anger. And I'm about to go teach this loving kindness retreat. And loving kindness is a natural antidote to the anger, fear, aversion. But again, if we look at the old language, the Pali language, this word metta, it got translated from the old language into Old English, and we got loving kindness. You might think, wow, if I'm feeling angry at somebody, loving kindness is a pretty high bar. We actually take a whole day at the Metta retreat at Spirit Rock, and we work with that, and we call it Metta for the difficult person. As if we only had one, right? But we choose one to stand in for all difficult people, including this one here, ourselves. You might say, that's rather difficult. Here's the good news. Some of our modern day scholars are re-looking at this word metta and retranslating it into modern English. What we're discovering is that actually more accurate translation of this word metta is goodwill or basic friendliness. We might not be able to have love when we're feeling totally freaked out or angry, but we might be able to have a spirit of friendliness towards it or a spirit of goodwill towards it. Then we've got sloth and torpor. Really helpful for especially those of us that are newer to this to know that it's perfectly fine if we're meditating and we're getting sleepy, that we can straighten our posture, open the eyes, stand up. I think I saw somebody standing up. It's great practice to bring in energy when we're feeling sleepy while we meditate. The opposite is this restlessness, worry. And that is more about bringing in focus and calm and spaciousness. So we'll talk about that when we talk about calm. And then we have doubt, and we can bring in the qualities of first seeing it, because doubt's the kind of thing that we'll have our car keys in hand and we're leaving. We're leaving our community here, we're leaving a relationship, we're leaving something. Because the doubt took over, we didn't see it, and we're out of here. It's dangerous that way. It doesn't mean that through doubt we might not come to a conscious conclusion that it's time to leave. It just means we don't want to be asleep about it. Another antidote is trust. If I'm feeling really, really in doubt about something, can I trust that I could take 3 breaths with it? I probably won't die. I take 3 breaths with it. That kind of thing. So this joy, this bliss, manifests two forms. One is in the body, the bliss body itself. That can manifest as, everything from a smile on the face to the hair on the arms rising on end, to waves of kind of bliss in the body, to all kinds of forms of happiness. And then also happiness in the mind. That sweetness or exalted. Wow, it's pervasive. And nothing can really knock it over. So as I'm saying this, I'm imagining in a group this large that at least one of you is having one of those days where you're just in a kind of like mood. It's like, oh, I wish you'd stop talking about this joy. I'm in the exact opposite. I want to acknowledge that if we're going to leave nothing out. It's funny because sometimes when I can be open to that, I can let the joy leak in a little bit without having to other the mood. Just a possibility. So instead of talking about it more, maybe we'll let it leak in a little bit more, do simple practice. And so this practice was one that there's a little backstory, and it's kind of a cute backstory. So it's taught by Ajahn Amaro. And Ajahn Amaro doesn't live in this country anymore, but for many years he was the co-abbot of a monastery in Mendocino called Abhayagiri Monastery. And what Abhayagiri means is fearless mountain. And if you've ever been there, anybody been up there? I figure a few have been up there. The whole thing's built up this mountain, and there's these little deer trails up to their houses. They're called kutis, they're little cabins. So it's definitely, fearless mountain terrain, both in their minds and in the actual physical terrain. For many years, Ajahn Amaro and I taught together, actually twice a year. And one of the retreats that we taught was at Spirit Rock, and it was a retreat for families. And so those of you that have been to Spirit Rock Meditation Center and sat a retreat there, and if you haven't, you're always welcome. Up in the retreat hall, where it's usually very quiet and very still, you can imagine about 125 people, ages 5 to 85, all meditating and singing and hearing stories, and then we go outside and play games, Dharma games. And so we sit in the meditation hall and we're teaching the kids how to meditate. And, they're fairly sincere. It's a positive peer group. And so one day, Ajahn Amaro spontaneously looked out at everybody and he said, okay, we're going to do a loving kindness meditation. So everybody closed their eyes. And so everybody did. The little kids, some of them, they're like 6 years old and they're piled on like 3 or 4 of these zafus. Their feet don't even touch the ground. They're like balancing on their cushions. It's hysterical. And so they're sitting there and everybody shuts their eyes, and we'll shut our eyes. And this is what Ajahn Amaro said. He said, okay, we're going to do a loving kindness meditation, and it's a meditation about smiling. So everybody smile. And then we're going to move our smile to our left elbow. The left elbow is smiling. And now the right eyebrow is smiling. And his eyebrows were shaved, which made it particularly funny. And now the left foot is smiling. And now move your smile to your belly. And then he said, move your smile to your heart. And imagine your smile shining out the back of your heart also. And then he said, just smile. And then he rang the bell, and everybody opened their eyes, and he said, good job. I have been using that ever since, and I've taught it to people all ages, and always there's a giggle, and I've had a lot of people say to me, especially if loving kindness felt like a high bar, like, oh, I'm supposed to say these phrases of well-wishing, and I can't remember them, and it all feels like too much, and I don't feel like a loving person. How can I do this? All this stuff, right? But if we just move our smile to our elbow, it's like, okay. Now, I've actually used this in moments of duress when I was irritated with somebody. I've looked at them and imagined their left elbow smiling, and I just can't hold that irritation in the same way. I'm like, yeah, you're really annoying. I mean, obviously, they're not inherently annoying, right? But it appears that way. You're really annoying, and your left elbow's smiling. Okay, so it's just simple practice, bringing joy. You know, obviously, as enlightenment factors, joy and tranquility have a whole range, from the most ordinary, accessible, user-friendly, to the most extraordinary, awakened aspects. And we need the whole continuum. If we don't have access to the ordinary and we're always looking for the fully awakened joy or tranquility, well, then we're only going to have access to it a certain amount of the time, right? Or at all. But if we can plug into the ordinary, then we always have access to the continuum, and it can grow. We can be in relationship with it. So then we'll talk about calm, sometimes called tranquility, relaxation. And it's always interesting to me to teach these together, because I'll often feel the whole community kind of energetically uplift or get a little more buoyant when we're talking about joy. And I'll watch everybody get really sleepy. We're talking about calm. See what happens. No pressure. It's just interesting. Now that I've actually marked it, you know, we might have a different experience. So when the 5 hindrances are released, when they're not in the foreground of our experience, joy is available. And out of that joy, that gladness, believe it or not, that's actually a doorway to tranquility, to calm. The joyfulness supports concentration. It supports settling. And if we think about it, tranquility or calm is an antidote to worry. And when all that settles down, then, you know, there's just this calm. It's pleasant to neutral. So Bhante Gunaratana puts it like this: when the practitioner sees the 5 hindrances abandoned in themselves, gladness arises. Thus gladdened, rapture arises. And when one is rapturous, the body becomes tranquil. Tranquility in turn leads to happiness, upon which the mind becomes concentrated. So we've got this big relationship, ordinary, extraordinary ways, between the hindrances falling in the background, gladness, joy, calm, concentration. So this was a real key one for me, because as I said, when I came into meditation, I was in chronic pain, and those of us who have been in chronic pain know that when that discomfort, and it wasn't like excruciating pain all the time, it was discomfort all the time. But if you add that up for enough years, the whole body contracts around that. It's not exactly relaxed. And the mind isn't exactly relaxed either, because it's always checking that kind of SOS place. It's become an area of sensitivity. It's like, am I okay? There's just not a lot of relaxation in that. It's a reactive startle response that keeps us healthy and alive. So there's nothing wrong with it. We need that response. It's not exactly relaxed. So there's the non-relaxation of the body. There's the non-relaxation of the mind, the worry mind. And calm is the antidote to worry. So I'll read to you a quote from Danny Goldman. It's called The Problem with Worry. New solutions and fresh ideas of seeing a problem do not typically come from worrying. I mean, isn't that why we worry, to figure it out? Okay, let's say it again. New solutions and fresh ways of seeing a problem do not typically come from worrying, especially chronic worry. Instead of coming up with solutions to these potential problems, worriers typically simply ruminate on the danger itself. immersing themselves in a low-key way in the dread associated with it while staying in the same rut of thought. Okay. We've all done this. There's no judgment on that. But calm is the antidote to worry. We start to relax, and all of a sudden, a bright new idea pops up. Thinking of just an on-the-ground example of that I was doing yesterday. As a full-time retreat teacher, this is ridiculous, I'm sure it'll make you smile if not laugh. We schedule ourselves, and I mean for me every single day, about a year to 18 months in advance. And we do this to support people to be in the present moment. It's totally ridiculous. It's called modern culture, and needing to rent retreat centers, etc., meets meditation. So I'm working on my 2015 calendar in earnest right now, and some worry arose in the mind. How am I going to fit all this in? How am I going to create space for where the teaching's moving through me now versus what my regular commitments are? No. You know that mind? And I have my laptop in my lap. I started doing some reflective writing, taking notes. So it's about my schedule, but fill in your own blank about whatever. Worrying mind. And at some point, fairly early on in the process, I just stopped. I left the computer in my lap and I just shut my eyes and I said, I need to feel into this. There's something more than just trying to figure this out on a practical level. Now I happen to have a mind that's very practical and I'm good with practical thinking. But I just realized there was more to this. And I closed my eyes and I took a few breaths and I just relaxed for like 30 seconds. And I opened my eyes and looked at what I'd written and all the different options, and it was, I'd pretty well laid it out. And the whole thing was just completely clear. Oh, right, these things that I think I'm probably not doing, I'm actually not going to do. And these things that are new that I might be bringing in, I can really see how 2 of them are going to work. And the whole thing just became completely clear. It doesn't mean I have it all figured out. It just means the mind cleared out of that relaxation. And today, I'm not worried about the process, and it's such a process of putting it all together, or the outcome. That's calm. That's leading with calm and relaxation in the body and the mind. So I had to learn quite a bit about calm when I started because of the chronic pain, because of the chronic worry. My mother was quite sick. I was her primary caregiver. There was just a lot of worry. So one tool. And it's a really obvious tool. Any of us that have meditated in the insight meditation tradition, and of course all meditation traditions are welcome here. But those of us that have meditated in the insight tradition, a very simple tool that's taught right from the beginning, it's called mental noting or labeling. So it looks like, here we are breathing, we were already breathing. We notice the breath. As the breath moves in, we can label that process rising, that process falling. And then maybe we feel our hands in between breaths. That place where we get lost in thought really easily because there's nothing going on. So you say, I'll feel my hands in between breaths. And we might use the mental label touching or, sensation. Rising, falling, touching. Then we'll notice thinking, which is really different than telling ourselves the story of what we were thinking about. We use the label thinking. So this is from the UCLA School of Medicine. Okay. Researchers at the UCLA School of Medicine made a significant discovery about the value of using words to label fearful circumstances. When subjects in an experiment were shown faces with expressions of anger or fear, the fear centers in their brain showed increased blood flow, indicating that their own fight-flight responses were being stimulated. However, when the subjects were asked to choose a word to describe the facial expressions of anger or fear, the blood flow to the fear centers diminished. The researchers concluded that the activity of labeling, which takes place in the higher regions of the brain, can regulate emotional responses, helping you to feel calmer. So literally neurologically. There's a difference between being consumed in our experience and being lost and not having the mindfulness or the awareness, and having the mindfulness and awareness and saying, this is happening. It doesn't mean we're dissociated from our experience. It means we're more connected with our experience. Simple way to calm. And just to mention, this art of mindfulness of the nervous system is a particular art of mindfulness. And any of us that certainly have a background of any kind of trauma, this is an art worth learning. But when I say a background of trauma, I don't necessarily mean the big traumatic things that some of us have experienced. Most of us, being a human being living a life, have had something. Yeah, maybe it was small, maybe it was big. And so to know simple techniques to settle this nervous system and bring calm to the foreground, really helpful. For me, when I started meditating, there was enough activation in my nervous system that being told to watch my breath was a recipe for failure. Okay? Because the breath was really shallow, and it actually dropped me too much into my body, and then I would pop out as a reactive response, and then I thought I couldn't meditate. It really tells you something about how desperate I was when I started that I kept going, because I was a failure, you know? So it's nice to know things like, if you're struggling with the breath because you're kind of having trouble being in the body for one reason or another, maybe it's not trauma, maybe it's just you're feeling really restless, to know that you can actually put more attention on the sensation of the hands touching in between breaths, and just skim the in-breath and the out-breath, and then really pay attention just now to how your hands feel. It's like my hands feel cooler on the tops than on the bottoms, and they're tingling. And we're not looking for anything special. The nervous system doesn't have advanced degrees. It's very simple. We start to notice our hands. All of the energy moves down. Things start to settle. Because if we're in anxiety or agitation, it's like a startle response. And the problem is sometimes we can stay like this for a really long time and not know it. I mean, like years. I can feel my hands. And the whole thing starts to settle layer by layer by layer. It's not like a quick fix. Felt my hands, I'm all better now. It's like a settling, layer by layer by layer. Really helpful, these simple techniques. Maybe I'll just say a word on contentment. Contentment was one of the qualities that I was deeply investigating in my own practice last year, actually. So it came up for me about a year ago. You know, given my history and everything, you could see that it probably wouldn't be a historical fact that I would feel like contentment was in the foreground of my experience. You know, for me, these practices have really worked. They've really shifted the centers of gravity in the mind out of like a lot of disturbance and distress, with really good reasons, into, contentment's available, friendliness is available, calm's available. And I found this quote that got the whole thing started that says, contentment is a characteristic of the really happy individual. And I like that because sometimes when we think about happiness, we'll think, I've got to be really up, really happy. It's got to show. Everybody's got to know I'm happy all the time. Contentment isn't exactly sexy or doesn't have a lot of charge, but there's a lot to it. It's so peaceful. It's so easeful. There can be a depth and continuity to it that the spikes of happiness don't have because of the impermanence. It's hard to keep a spike of really high happiness going continuously for a long period of time. Contentment has some staying power. This is a poem by Robert Burns. Pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower, its bloom is shed. Or like the snowfall in the river, a moment white then melts forever. And it's this relationship between the pleasures, which can be so incredible. We don't need to be looking for trouble all the time. The pleasures of our lives are amazing. And they're like poppies. They bloom, they pass. The snow falls, it melts. Underneath that, there could be a layer of contentment with life on life's terms, which has a lot of power. And then the last quality that I want to bring in is another complementary quality to this calm, to this joy. So we've got contentment, and that's gratitude. And it's been really interesting. Last year and now again this year, I'm running a program up at Mountain Stream Meditation Center. It's called Committed Students Program. It's about 30 people from all over California who come together once a month and meet with me individually to further develop their practice. They're kind of intermediate level meditators, meaning they're not new and they haven't been doing it for 25 years. And we've been gathering together for the last year. It's amazing the commitment they've made. A third of those 30 people travel 2 hours one way once a month to be there. We live in small communities up there, and so it's an amazing opportunity to get together with that many people at one time and over time develop community the same way that you do here on a Sunday morning. They have to work harder for it, and they do. Really respect them for that. So last fall, the topic that we were studying and practicing with was the divine abodes. And the divine abodes are loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The month that we took to practice with joy, and especially joy and for the happiness of others, we took on a complementary practice of gratitude. And it was amazing. Of all the practices we did the entire year, that one caught like wildfire. We have people at Dharma buddies. Maybe we have Dharma buddies here. And people would be texting and emailing each other every day or once a week things they're grateful for. And it turned out that it like uplifted them. They do it upon awakening or before going to bed. Some of them had gratitude journals that they'd write. Just like 5 things or 3 things upon awakening before going to bed. Some of them had stressful jobs and they'd sit down at lunch instead of stressing out. They'd make some gratitude lists internally. All kinds of things. Then it starts spreading beyond that community because they are all connected with little tiny sitting groups in their areas. And their sitting groups started taking it on. And then I heard people's family members started taking it on. It was just this thing. It was so contagious. So I wanted to share the joy of that contagion with you. Maybe it'll catch on here. And I'll come back in a year and I'll ask you. And what's really funny is I have that kind of mind. I probably will come back next year and ask you. I don't know. I remember the randomest things. Oh, now I've pressured myself. You're going to have to remind me, Jeff. So a quote on gratitude. And it's from Rumi. Be grateful for your life, every detail of it, and your face will come to shine like a sun, and everyone who sees it will be made glad and peaceful. Persist in gratitude, and you will slowly become one with the sun of love, and love will shine through you in its all-healing joy. So that is what I have to offer for reflection this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Do you mind
kindness
taking
of
a question
your
or two?
attention. I did leave a few minutes in case somebody wanted to share their own experience or they had a question. Feels important. It might just be a share, please.
So this may be a little bit obscure, but I've been on a couple of kindness retreats at Spirit Rock, and I really love the joy practice. And there was a teaching about the near enemy being exuberance.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny because there's a book by a Stanford psychology professor called Exuberance, a Zest for Life, which makes it sound really great. So it could be a translation thing, but the way I've noticed exuberance, and I'm sort of curious like how you work with that, is that something will happen and it's really fun. Like I had lunch with Sandy, it was a really nice lunch. I hadn't seen her in a long time, didn't really know her that well.
Yeah.
And at first I was, wow, this was really fun. And then I was thinking, wow, we should do some event together. We should put on this training together. We should do this. And I was walking across the street, and I thought, wow, this must be exuberance, because now instead of just enjoying it, I'm setting up all of these expectations that might not work out.
Yeah, it's like the mind gets so excited that it leaves the moment. It's trying to continue the feeling. I want it to go on and on and on, so I'm going to create a future, out of a present moment exuberance. And so he's asking about with joy or sympathetic joy, a quality which masquerades as this type of joy is exuberance. And it's really just that the joy has gotten so great. It's gotten greater than the quality of mindfulness or awareness to have presence with it. And so then it proliferates. So that's why I think of it, or sometimes it's called near enemy. I think of it as a near miss. It has the qualities of sympathetic joy, and then it has a little extra, and the little extra just moved out of the moment, and we've actually missed the joy in trying to continue and recreate the joy. So that's how I hold it. Is that helpful? Yeah. Thanks for bringing it in. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I really appreciated your example of using notation, and the difference between that and making up a story about what was happening, and just simply noting. And I thought, that's such a great example of that the mind isn't the enemy, but it makes a much better servant. And if you can just use it in situations like that, without the story, but the notation part of it is a tool. So
Right. Yeah, we're not trying to give ourselves a lobotomy.
Yeah.
No, but I love what you said. It's like there's nothing wrong with the thinking, there's nothing wrong with the mind, but it makes a better servant than a ruler. Yeah, to me, I mean, that goes back to my intention for the year, no part left out. It's like we don't want to leave out the thinking. We don't want to leave out the sense of self. We want to be in relationship with. And the mental noting is one way to be in relationship with, instead of being run by. Thank you. Other thoughts? Question, please.
But the idea of paying attention to what's been left out, I mean, that's difficult.
Yeah.
What's missing
Yeah.
is there's a Greek filmmaker who couldn't depict certain things during the 70s because of the political situation.
Right.
And when I knew that his films were esteemed, but there'd be scenes where I'd be bored, and I said, what's going on? And I said, oh, wait, there's something here that he's not showing that's important, and boom, then it would hit me.
Yeah.
And that happened over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we can generalize that to life, that when one's bored, well, what's missing? What's been left out?
Yeah.
And
That's such a great metaphor. I mean, and also for parts of ourselves, or ways that some group is being othered or marginalized. It's like something doesn't feel harmonious. I'm disconnecting, because boredom is a disconnect from experience. So it's like there's some disconnection. Something's being left. Oh, that's a really great metaphor. I'm going to use that with your permission. I think this is the last one, yeah.
I've often thought about kind of like my day with gratitude and joy for dealing with problems and trying to fix things. And I was noticing how, at least my mind, 90% of the day could be neutral or okay or have some joy to it, and 10% could have something that goes wrong.
Yeah.
And 90% of my energy during the day is spent in my head with what went wrong and how to fix it. And I was thinking, I was wondering whether that's like a evolutionary survival thing that we go there, but it doesn't feel good.
Right.
It's tense and it's closed versus the way joy and gratitude feel. So it's almost like And we feel like, wow, as humans, we're going to have to rewire our brains and our emotions in order to have more joy, and not even to be in gratitude rather than to have gratitude, you know, and joy.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment. How many people have had that experience ever? Just show of hands, so see. Yeah, it's normalized a little bit. Rick Hansen actually talks about that specifically. I'm not a neuroscientist, but Rick up in Marin County, where there's some way that we're actually hardwired for survival to more highly track the difficulty, and your intuition is neurologically a survival technique. And so when we talk about developing new neural pathways, that's it. I call it shifting the center of gravity. Scientists call it developing new neural pathways. Yes, And that's what we're doing through these practices. On one hand, we're deeply including and investigating the suffering, the difficulty, the unsatisfactoriness. On the other hand, we're shifting the center of gravity to say, and there's more. Yeah, thank you. So I know we have an announcement meditation.
No, announcement meditation, yes. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next week, we have Charles Garfield who's going to speak. Charles Garfield, PhD, is founder of Shanti Project, which a lot of you know from the 80s and 90s, and Shanti National Training Institute. Founding faculty at Meta Institute End of Life Counseling Program, and visiting scholar at Star King School for Ministry at GTU. And he was a mathematician on the Apollo 11 first lunar landing program.
Sounds impressive.
I'll stop there and go on to the Dana meditation. GBF, one of our traditions is to ask for Dana, which is a Sanskrit Pali word meaning generosity or giving. In Buddhism, it also refers to the practice of cultivating generosity. This could be characterized by unattached and unconditional generosity, giving and letting go. GBF asks for a weekly donation of $10 or more every year monthly experiences. This includes our rent, the speaker honorarium, newsletter production, and mailing costs, and the monthly Market Street Youth Center dinner. If you wish to see an itemized breakdown of our expenses, they're on a card out in the living room by the tea and the Donna Bowl. And our host will be coming around at the social time with the Donna Bowl. We appreciate your continued support that sustains our wonderful song. So, any other announcements? Hosts?
I'm your host. I already told you about the Donna Bowl. If you are new and want to be on the mailing list, please sign up on the list on the right over there, and please include your email and your physical address. There are snacks available. There's also tea and water, I suppose, and if you use a cup, just wash it and put it back in the rack to dry. And some of us go out afterwards for lunch, and if you're interested in that, usually they'll meet in the front of by the door at about 12:30.
Okay. I just also want to announce real quick from Dale Borglum, one of our regular speakers, that February 15th and 16th, he's doing a conscious dying workshop for caregivers, therapists, and anyone wanting to deeply explore healing, and that's at the Women's Building. So let's close with our dedication to merit.
Thank you. Great to see you. The watch.
All right.
Do you want me to read the dedication?
Go, sure.
Do you want me to do that one? I can do mine.
Oh, let's do yours.
Are you guys okay
New
doing
one.
a different one?
Yes.
Although yours looks really neat, but I'll share with you mine. Okay. So we'll just start by taking a moment of silence to acknowledge both the tremendous suffering and tremendous joy on the planet right now. this is call and response, if you should care to join in. May all beings receive the blessings of my life.
May all beings receive the blessings of my life.
May I receive the blessings of my life.
May I receive the blessings of my life.
May those I love receive the blessings of my life.
May those I love receive the blessings of my life.
May those I do not love receive the blessings of my life.
May those I do not love receive the blessings of my life.
May all those in this circle receive the blessings of my life.
May all those in the circle receive the blessings of my life.
May all beings receive the blessings of my life.
May all beings receive the blessings of my life.
So thank you for being a part of this wonderful community. Thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.